Have you ever wondered how really complex ideas like faith and hardship are actually taught in a classroom? Well, today we're doing something a little different. We are going to step inside a grade 10 religious studies class and break down a lesson plan that teaches young Christians how to respond to persecution.
So the lesson kicks off by painting this really vivid picture. Imagine a teenager who refuses to cheat, who won't lie, who actually stands up for what's right. Now, you'd think they'd get a pat on the back for that, right? But in this scenario, the total opposite happens. They end up getting mocked, excluded, and even punished for it.
And that sets up the central question this entire lesson is built around. It's a really powerful and, let's be honest, confusing idea for a young person to have to grapple with. Why would living by your values sometimes lead to something bad happening to you? This is the very problem the curriculum sets out to answer.
So, just to be clear, our focus here is on the framework itself. We're going to take a neutral look at what's being taught, how the lesson is put together, and what it's trying to achieve with its students.
Okay, so the lesson is broken down into 3 different sessions. The first one kicks everything off by really nailing down a basic understanding of the core concept. Let's see how it defines the conflict for these students.
Right at the start, the lesson gives a formal definition. Persecution is the unfair treatment of people because of their faith or beliefs. It's simple, it's direct, and it gives everyone a clear baseline for everything else that's about to come.
But a definition can be a bit abstract. So to make it more concrete, the lesson provides these specific examples. It's trying to connect the big idea to experiences students might actually recognize, from things like mockery and rejection at school, all the way to more severe forms like punishment or imprisonment that are seen in other parts of the world.
And here's the crucial point the curriculum makes. This isn't just random unfairness. From the Christian perspective taught in this lesson, this kind of treatment is a direct result of living by the teachings of Jesus. It's basically framed as a consequence of their faith.
Now, this slide really gets to the heart of the lesson's theological viewpoint. Persecution isn't just some negative thing you should try to avoid. Instead, the curriculum completely reframes it as a challenge with a purpose. It's a test designed to strengthen a believer's faith, their courage, and their endurance.
So let's move on to session 2 and see how this all builds. After defining what the problem is, the lesson shifts gears to outlining a very specific solution, and it pulls its advice straight from the biblical teachings of St. Peter. What's really interesting here is the hook for this session. It's this very counterintuitive question. Why would someone tell you not to be surprised when you're suffering? I mean, that idea goes against pretty much all of our natural instincts, which makes it a super powerful way to introduce what St. Peter has to say. And here is that advice, all broken down into a clear 4-step process. First, don't be surprised it says that hardship is just part of the Christian experience. Second, remain holy. Keep your integrity even when things are tough. Third, respond with hope. Trust that there's a positive outcome. And finally, share in glory. Understand that the experience itself is a path to spiritual growth. To really drive the point home, the lesson plan uses this direct, side-by-side comparison. It contrasts what it calls a worldly reaction, things like anger, revenge, despair, with the prescribed Christian response, which is faith, patience, and hope. This visual makes the difference incredibly clear for the students.
So, the first 2 sessions covered the what and the how. This final session gets into the why. What's the motivation for choosing patience and hope instead of anger and despair? This part of the lesson is all about the rewards that are promised.
And again, the session kicks off with a really potent question that gets right to the heart of human motivation. It acknowledges the pain, it acknowledges the temptation to just give up, and that sets the stage perfectly for explaining what, according to this lesson, makes the whole struggle worthwhile.
And here is the core answer that the curriculum provides. The main motivation that's offered to students is the promise of future heavenly rewards for anyone who stays faithful through all these trials. It shifts the focus away from immediate, earthly comfort to a long-term spiritual prize.
And this is pretty cool. To reinforce this idea, the lesson actually includes an interactive game. Students get cards with concepts like heaven, popularity, and wealth, and they have to sort them into what the curriculum calls true rewards versus things that are not. This activity really teaches them to differentiate between worldly and spiritual values. The lesson then outlines these key virtues or character traits that students are encouraged to actively show while they're facing hardship. So it's not just about passively enduring it, it's about actively demonstrating positive qualities like patience, love for other people, forgiveness, and even joy.
Now this quote here, this is a really crucial piece of the lesson's logic. It directly connects an emotional state, joy, to the strength of a person's faith. So, within this framework, feeling joyful during a really difficult time is presented as the ultimate expression of trust that God's promises of a future reward are actually true.
Okay, so let's put this all together. What's the ultimate goal here? Why teach all of this to a group of teenagers? Let's take a look at the lesson's stated purpose.
According to the source material, this whole lesson is designed to be a practical toolkit. The idea is to give young believers who might be facing social pressure or mockery a pre-built mental and spiritual framework to not only cope with it, but to actually develop what the curriculum calls resilience and godly character.
And that brings us to our final takeaway. The students' homework is to apply these ideas to their own lives. But it leaves us with a bigger question, regardless of our personal beliefs. What can we learn from a framework that reframes suffering not as an endpoint, but as a test? How does the promise of a future reward, whether it's spiritual or something else, help us build resilience when we're facing hardship today?